Really pleased to have you all join us this afternoon for me in the UK, this morning for you.
Yeah,
So
it's still morning. See, I'm still drinking my decaffeinated coffee.
very good. I've got my caffeinated coffee. So
Yeah, I have it's like a half teaspoon decaffeinated, half teaspoon caffeinated.
I like that.
You do?
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah.
It's like I get the full flavor, but not totally decaffeinated.
Weaning yourself off, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Well,
as you can see, we have the students coming in, and we have students from all over the world.
that's amazing.
From parts of Southeast Asia, I see parts of Africa. I see some students from Europe even. So yeah, it's great to see everybody here. I think we'll get started. Are you going to leave time for questions and answers at the end?
Yes, about 10 minutes if that's okay.
Perfect.
We had lots of questions before, so I'll make sure we definitely have 10 minutes, if not a bit more time.
And you'll want to stop right at the hour. At an hour, we'll stop.
I mean, if that works for you, yes, happy to do that. We'll go a few minutes.
Okay. If there's a few more questions in there, we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. I see everybody saying hello in chat. Rebecca, do you have your chat open?
I'm trying to see. Yes. Oh,
Because
yes. I
once
have.
in a while, you might pop in a question there that you can respond to.
Absolutely. I'll be keeping an eye on that. So do pop your questions in as I go through, and I probably won't be able to answer them as I go through. So we'll
Right.
save those for the end.
Yeah, I'll monitor the questions and kind of save them for the end.
Perfect. Sounds like a good plan. Well, it's lovely to see you all here. And I don't know if any of you have seen me before in previous seminar sessions, but I have done two prior. So, and I've always loved the interaction that I've had with you at the end of the sessions as well. Lots of engagement questions. So let's make a start. And
Go right ahead. I think you're set and ready to go.
fabulous. Just trying to.
I guess give a little introduction about your history and some of the things that you're really interested in. Oh, there you go. My background. There you go.
Yeah, so some of you who've been to my sessions before will have heard a little bit about my background, but I'm a registered nutritionist. I've done my undergraduate in nutrition and master's in more personalised nutrition, particularly nutrition genetics. And this has really led me to actually be quite passionate about the digestive system and gut health, because what I was finding is people were doing DNA tests, and it was great. We were finding out lots of useful information, and I will be doing a topic on nutrigenetics as well. And I think it's a fantastic piece of the puzzle. But what I was finding, or what I am finding still, is that a lot of the time people are suffering with digestive issues, and that really people are dealing with issues that start in the gut, and that's where we need to start. So really what I do is work one-to-one with clients on digestive problems, hormonal imbalances, and yeah, things like DNA testing, basically personalized nutrition, to really get to the root cause of their problems. And that's something I'm super passionate about. And you might see that I've got some new branding as well. I've just got a new website there. You
So,
might see.
Rebecca, are you saying you're going to do another class on using the DNA?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And
So
that's not going to be included in this presentation.
no, we won't be talking at all about genetics here. So we're
Perfect.
just talking about the gut today. So as I put here, Hippocrates said more than 2,000 years ago that he's a Greek philosopher, if anyone doesn't know, that all disease begins in the gut. And I think he was really onto something here. So now I'm not sure about where you are, if this is the case, but certainly where I am in the UK, gut health is everywhere in 2024. And why has it got so popular? Well, there's a few reasons for this. So thanks to increases in research due to the Human Microbiome Project, more money has been put into research possibilities for learning more about the gut microbiome. We didn't know much about it 20 years ago, but now so much more is being discovered, and at a really, really quick and rapid rate at the moment. And also, unfortunately, we're having a massive increase in gastrointestinal issues. Like I just said, nearly everyone I speak to seems to have a problem. I think it's 1 in 4 have IBS, IBD, or gluten sensitivity of some sort. And I reckon it's probably actually more than that. And we have increasing evidence of the gut-brain axis, which we're going to be talking about as well, which is fascinating. The gut is basically like our second brain, and the gut and the stomach, or the gut and the gut and the brain are always in constant communication with each other. That is a fascinating area of discussion as well, and has massive implications for things like mental health. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to move the thing over there. And also, we've had an explosion of gut health related products like probiotics, prebiotics. You might have seen in lots of supermarkets an influx of these gut health products. There's certainly been a huge influx in the UK, that's for sure. So these are just a few headlines that I found recently about gut health and why this consumer trend is really here to stay. And it really is a buzzword at the moment, but I do believe it's for a really good reason, and it's definitely here to stay. That's a TV program that just came out recently that I was working on, and it's got a bit of a rude name actually, but it's quite good if you wanted to learn a bit more about the gut microbiome.
What's the name? Gut Talk? Is that what?
This one at the bottom right hand corner.
What was the name of it?
Know your
Oh, okay. I get it.
catchy.
I want to say that, sis, I see that you have your hand up, but we're going to wait to the end for the questions. So you can write your question into chat right now, and we'll save it for the end of the presentation, okay? Okay. Rebecca, go ahead.
Great. So what actually is the gut? And I think a lot of people think it's just the stomach, right? But no, it's much more than that. It's everything from our mouth, our esophagus, the long food pipe, our stomach, our small intestine, our large intestine, and the rectum. So basically, we kind of, in simple terms, we want to imagine that our body is this big, amazing factory that turns our food into energy and building blocks basically to keep everything running smoothly. So the gut is also known as the gastrointestinal GI tract, and it's basically like the main production line in this factory. So digestion starts in the mouth, or you could actually say that digestion starts in the brain. Have you ever walked into a restaurant or somewhere where food smells really good and your mouth starts salivating? That's because your brain is telling your stomach, yeah, there's food around, and I'm ready to start the digestion process by creating saliva, and that's got enzymes in that are going to start breaking down your food before it even gets to the stomach. So along this, a long food tube, once the food is ingested in the mouth, it goes on this journey where it's broken down, sorted, and then turned into nutrients that your body can actually use. So overall, our guts really are as individual as our fingerprints, and you're going to find out a bit more why that is. So I hope you can see this. I've just portioned off a bit of my screen, so it's cut off a little bit here. So what is the gut microbiome? So we just talked about the gut, the whole organ system, and it is now considered an organ, the gut, because it's so important and it sustains our life. We simply would not be alive without our gut. So our gut does a lot more than just handle our food. It's also home to literally trillions of bacteria and other microorganisms like viruses and fungi that help with our digestion. They make vitamins, enzymes, and they help to protect you from illness, essentially. Our gut houses 70% of our immune system, which is quite significant. So this community of microorganisms is collectively known as the gut microbiome. And it's basically like having a little ecosystem inside you that keeps you healthy and keeps everything ticking along. Or that's what it should do anyway. And we're going to talk more about why that doesn't always happen. So this complex ecosystem is, like I said, made up of those trillions of microbes, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and it's considered its own organ on its very own. And There's about 1,000 different species that we know of. Most of them are good, but some of them are bad. And they exist mostly inside your intestines, mostly in the large intestine, but also on your skin. So although, there's so many different types of microbes that are being studied, bacteria are the most studied of all of them, because generally they have the most kind of implication for human health. So altogether, it's kind of crazy when you try and visualize this. These microbes, obviously microscopic, they actually weigh together as much as 1 to 2 kilograms or 2 to 5 pounds, which is actually roughly the weight of your brain, or even a bit more. So yeah, together, these microbes function as an extra organ in your body, and they obviously play a huge role in your health. So a little weird fact, fun fact, but also makes me feel a bit weird, that you're literally more bacteria than you are human. So there's 40 trillion bacterial cells in your body, but only 30 trillion human cells. So still a lot of human cells, but I find that fact kind of mind-blowing. So like I said before, your gut is like a second brain. That's what they're calling it now, the second brain. And the gut basically consists of its own nervous system, which, if we want to be technical, it's called the enteric nervous system, or ENS for short. And it consists of over 100 million nerve cells. So have you ever had like a gut feeling about something? Well, turns out your gut and your brain, they're in constant conversation with each other. It's a phone line that's constantly on. They're like best friends and never stop talking to each other. And even the feeling of butterflies in your stomach, that's the gut-brain connection in action. Or have you ever felt nauseous if you're upset? So these phrases are part of the English vocabulary for a reason. There's a really strong link between your emotions and your digestive system. So it's like your gut has its own mini brain, basically. 100 million nerve cells are lining your stomach, and all of your stomach and all of your intestines. So yeah, this network basically is so smart that it can manage your digestion, and it can actually talk to your brain all on its own. Pretty amazing. So your microbiome is really, it's like a rainforest. So this is the way I like to describe it. Each species plays a really unique role in maintaining the balance of this whole ecosystem. So obviously, if we're missing some species of plants or animals, the whole rainforest system can kind of not work. I mean, I'm no ecologist, but yeah, essentially we have a few missing links, and basically the ecosystem doesn't work. So in a similar way, your microbiome hosts an incredible variety of microorganisms. And so each type of microbe has its own specific function, whether that's helping to digest food or produce vitamins or protect against harmful pathogens, and also affecting your mood and behavior. So we need diversity of our microbiome. That is absolutely key, and unfortunately something that is becoming more of an issue with our Western diets. That's unfortunately, species of bacteria are starting to die out quite quickly, that we might have had even just a few hundred years ago. So this is going to be a little bit more sciencey, these next few slides, talking about the kind of science behind the microbiome and what it actually does for us. Well, first of all, we would not be alive without our microbes. And one of the things that they do is a fermentation process. And this process happens when we have undigested carbohydrates and fibers when they reach the colon. And this is where the bacteria ferment them into what's called short-chain fatty acids. And these short-chain fatty acids are really essential for our health. They are very anti-inflammatory, they're important for our colon health, and they actually serve as an energy source as well for us. I think about 10% of our energy is created from them. And they also, short-chain fatty acids are so critical because they help to regulate our immune response. So making sure that our immune system doesn't react to a safe pathogen or something that would be a safe trying to think of the right word, essentially where the immune system is reacting the way that it should be to something that's in the immune system. And when that doesn't happen, when the immune system sees something as a threat that shouldn't be, that's when we can have issues like autoimmune disease or food sensitivities develop, for example. And then enzymes. So our gut bacteria actually produce enzymes that our bodies can't create on their own. And this helps to facilitate the breakdown of certain like plant fibers into more simple sugars that can be actually used and absorbed by the body. And then going on to the next role that the microbiome do is they synthesize essential nutrients. So they create vitamins like vitamin K and some B vitamins, B12, B6 and B9. And they're really vital for, I mean, so many things to do with our metabolic processes, overall health, creating energy for the body, and amino acids as well. So we know the whole body is basically created from amino acids, and yeah, these microbes help to synthesize and metabolize them. Particularly, you might have heard of these two strains, lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are two of the main strains of bacteria, and those particularly are key for helping to create amino acids for the body. And then, so our microbes and their influence on the immune system. So critically, our microbes help to train the immune system. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, how the gut microbiome helps to train our immune system properly. So especially this is established when we're young, perhaps in the first 1,000 days of our lives. That's a critical time for our microbes to be training our immune system to be reacting to things in the correct way. So also, yeah, learning how to fight off harmful bacteria while ignoring harmless ones. And then another super important role that the gut bacteria have is helping to develop T cells in our immune system, which then helps prevent allergies and autoimmune diseases as well. So that's helped partly by the short chain fatty acids as well, which I mentioned just a few slides ago. And this is a really key one. So protecting the gut. Now, our epithelial layer, the layer in our intestines is very delicate and it's only 1 cell thick. So the problem with this is that because it's such a delicate lining, it can get damaged quite easily. And this is a problem that a lot of people are dealing with, and it's known as something called leaky gut or gut impermeability. This is where the gut junctions, they should be tight like this, and the gaps widen because of a few things that can be due to stress, poor diet, can be due to infections and dysbiosis, which is where we have too much bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria. So the balance is out of whack. So it's something that can be fixed, it's reversible, and it's something I help clients with a lot because when those junctions are loose and we have the gaps in that lining and the intestines, and what should be happening is only nutrients are passed through and absorbed into the bloodstream. But actually what happens a lot of the time is that other food particles escape through, and then it causes an inflammatory response, and then we develop allergies or autoimmune problems because simply those food particles should not be circulating in the bloodstream. I hope that makes sense. So we have a mucosal layer, and we really need to, for a lot of people, we need to work on rebuilding that mucosal layer through eating a very high fiber diet and a real diverse plant-based diet. So that helps to rebuild that mucosal lining and helps to bring those gut junctions back together again. So if any of you have any kind of food sensitivities or have developed food sensitivities, this is something I would definitely look into because it's something we can really work on, and through certain supplements or just through lifestyle and stress reduction, or easier said than done sometimes, and working on our gut bacteria, increasing the good gut bacteria, we can work on this. And just thinking, is there anything else I need to say on this slide? I think that was everything. If you have any more questions on this particularly, I can help recommend some probiotics and help, because there's a few certain strains that we know help, like bifidobacteria, and another one called Akkermansia as well.
A quick question. So does this lining, does it pass into the liver or does it pass into the bloodstream? Where does the leaky gut go into?
The bloodstream, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is our intestines, the long tube, basically. This is where this is happening, where nutrient absorption generally happens, or should be happening. Yeah, so it's a long, I mean, it's something, I'm trying to think of the length of that, of the intestine is very long. So this can happen, we're quite susceptible to it because it's also such a wide area, surface area.
Will you be talking about what types of fiber to eat?
I will,
Okay.
certainly.
Okay.
Yes. So going on to how the microbes manage inflammation. So we have gut bacteria that particularly help to reduce inflammation and keep our immune system balanced. So like I said before, 70% of our immune system is hosted in our gut. So very significant to be working on that if you have any kind of inflammation going on. I'll be talking a bit more about how we can work on that later. And yeah, infections as well. So we know when we have more good gut bugs than bad, that helps to protect us from infections. And yeah, basically there's less competition with fighting sort of harmful bacteria. And now impact on our overall health. So weight and metabolism. This is a really interesting one because we've been told, media tells us that weight is completely in our control, and it's all about calories in, calories out, and that it's basically up to the individual to do that. And it's not something that we were necessarily born with. Well, we know that's not the case necessarily from our genetics, and I'll be talking about that, of course, in a few weeks a bit more in detail, but also from our gut microbiome side of things. Several well-known studies have shown that the gut microbiome completely different. It's completely different between even identical twins, one who had obesity and then one who didn't. So we know obviously they're genetically identical, but they still only shared about 30% of the same microbiome. So lifestyle obviously has a huge impact there. And then we know that from another study, that when the microbiome from one twin with obesity was transferred to a mouse, that mouse gained more weight than those who had received the microbiome of the other twin. So even though both groups were eating the same diet. So that really isolates the gut for playing that huge role, the microbiome for playing that role in obesity, and how particularly microbiome dysbiosis may play a role in weight gain. So we know probiotics can help to promote that healthy microbiome and help to promote weight loss as well. And there's particular strains, again, that we know, or starting to know a bit more about. Although a caveat to that is that it probably won't have a huge impact, that studies are showing that it might help people lose weight, maybe about 1 kilogram. So not massive. And then also we know that the gut microbiome affects our heart health. And there's a study of 1,500 people that found that the gut microbiome played a really important role in promoting the good, or HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides. And also the gut microbiome also may help control blood sugar, which obviously has implications for type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And so now we're talking a bit more about the mental health side of things, the gut-brain connection. So certain species of bacteria can help produce chemicals in the brain called neurotransmitters. So for example, 95% of serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is made in the gut. So that's very significant. And there's a huge amount of work and research going into gut psychiatry. And as we know, the gut is physically connected to the brain through through the vagus nerve and 100 million nerve cells. So the gut microbiome also may affect brain health because it helps control the messages that are sent to the brain through these nerves. And a number of studies have shown that people with different psychological disorders have different species of gut bacteria in their guts. So there's a new treatment called fecal transplant, which is being tested to actually take the microbiome of healthy people, or basically the fecal matter of those with a healthy gut, into those with an unhealthy gut, and then seeing the response. And people are being cured of depression, and it's pretty amazing. And then we know that probiotics might also help improve symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders, but only a small number of studies are showing that at the moment. So we definitely need more research in that area, which I'm sure will be happening soon. And then we know chronic diseases and gut health have this huge link as well. So, like I said, dysbiosis, we've got that imbalance of gut bacteria, is really common because of our intake of things like ultra-processed food. They help to promote the growth of bad bacteria. And our fibre lacking diets, unfortunately, don't help feed the good bacteria, so they can get starved. And this can lead to things like inflammatory bowel disease, which include under that umbrella Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And then autoimmune disease, as I mentioned a few times now, has a role where the microbes have a role in the immune system whereby it attacks the body's own cells. And allergies and asthma. So yeah, we know early life, I'm just going on to the next slide actually a bit more, how early life exposure to a diverse microbiome can help prevent allergies and asthma. And food sensitivities as well. I'm just added that one on the end because it's a really common one that we're seeing a lot more, and people are suffering with, and in a way unnecessarily, that it definitely can be helped. And people think that they need to exclude them for life, and that's not always the case. So, shaped from birth, the gut microbiome really begins to affect your body the moment you're born, or potentially even before you're born. So there's some research to indicate that even when you're in the womb, that you're getting some gut microbiome interaction there before you're even born. And whether you're a C-section birth or whether you have a vaginal birth, it depends, that influences your gut microbiome inoculation, basically. So I just had a C-section about a year ago, and I was a bit upset about this because I knew that he wouldn't be getting that kind of inoculation of my microbes that he would have done. So they're now finding ways to combat this because so many babies are C-section. Something called, I think it's vaginal seeding. So they actually put the microbiome from the mother over the baby as soon as it's born, but it's not really commonly done yet. And then the first 1,000 days after birth are a critical window for the gut microbiome development. And this is a study that talks all about it. And whether the baby is bottle fed or breastfed has a huge impact on the levels of bacteria in their gut for their whole life. And their exposure to particularly bifidobacterium is in breast milk, and it's not in formula. So these things have a huge impact, whether you were born in an urban or a rural area, whether you had pets growing up, all of these things make a huge difference. And of course, your antibiotic use as well, particularly as a child, has a big impact on the species that are present in your gut. Because unfortunately, we know of antibiotics that they do, they kill the bad bacteria, but they also do take the good with them, the good bacteria. So there's a 30-year-long study of 15,000 twins. It's a really famous study here in the UK, Twins UK and Predict, done by Professor Tim Spector. If anyone knows much about gut health, you may have heard about him. He ran these studies, and it showed that even genetically identical people respond to the same food very differently. and they only share about 30% of their same gut microbes. So yeah, this was pretty groundbreaking information for them to find out. So now onto the actionable side of it. How do we actually take care of our guts? Let's discuss. So first of all, and probably the most importantly, eat a diverse range of foods. Because if we're not eating a diverse range of foods, we are essentially starving the good bacteria, because each species of bacteria will feed on a different type of fiber, or even if you imagine a different color. So think about a different color fruit or vegetable will feed a particular type of bacteria. So if we're not eating many purple or red foods, then those particular strains might eventually die out. So in particular, legumes, beans, and fruit are the ones we want to focus on because they contain loads of fiber that can help promote the growth of particularly healthy bacteria. And then eat fermented foods. Now, this is like a cherry on top of the cake. So we need to get the foundations right first, which is eat a diverse range of foods and eat high fiber foods. And then eating fermented foods would come after that. So an example of fermented foods would be yogurt, particularly live yogurt. So you can see it on the label that it will say live yogurt containing live bacteria, something like that. So look out for that if you're wanting that. Or kefir is fermented yogurt. That's also great. So this actually these are the good bacteria that we're ingesting them in their kind of natural form. Sauerkraut as well is great, as is kimchi, miso. Trying to think of any others, any other fermented foods. So they mostly contain a type of bacteria called lactobacilli. And yeah, essentially you're creating that balance, you're increasing the balance of good bacteria to bad. So tipping the scale in the way that you want. And limiting your intake of artificial sweeteners. So this is not to say to reduce them, or to eliminate them completely out of your diet, but we do have some evidence that shows that artificial sweeteners like aspartame can increase blood sugar. And because they increase blood sugar by stimulating the growth of unhealthy bacteria, bad bacteria. So, and they can, basically kill off the good as well. So they also have an impact on our appetite signals, so they can make you feel satiated for a little bit and then actually more hungry after that. So it's something probably collectively a lot of people need to just reduce a little bit in their diet, and they are sneaky because they get themselves in lots of different food products, unfortunately. And then eat prebiotic foods. So prebiotic foods are the food for your gut bacteria, and they help to stimulate the growth of healthy bacteria because you're literally providing that food for them. So that includes foods like artichokes, bananas, asparagus, oats, apples. So all fibrous foods are great, but these are particularly rich in prebiotic fiber. And I said bananas, go for green bananas. They have more prebiotic fiber. So obviously once they're less green, they have more sugar or glucose in them. So ideally you want to have them when they're a bit more starchy and essentially a bit more for your body to break down. And now this isn't possible for everyone, but if you can, to breastfeed for at least 6 months is setting up your child for the best in life. And yeah, the evidence is pretty clear on that one. And eating whole grains. So whole grains, they contain obviously lots of fiber and particularly something called beta glucans, which are digested by the gut. We can't digest them ourselves. And they're particularly beneficial for our weight regulation, cancer, diabetes, and other kind of health issues as well. and try a plant-based diet. So this doesn't mean to go completely vegan, but even just going vegetarian or just basing your diet on plants, we know can help to reduce levels of even like disease-causing bacteria like E. coli and help manage inflammation and cholesterol levels. How much you want to kind of commit to that is totally up to you. Will be based on so many different options, so many different factors as well. But even if you can do one plant-based day a week, is a great start. And then eating food rich in polyphenols. So polyphenols are they're plant compounds which are found in, thankfully, nice things like red wine and dark chocolate, olive oil, whole grains, matcha. And they're broken down by our gut microbiome to help stimulate healthy bacterial growth. So that is your go ahead to start including some dark chocolate and red wine into your diet. There's obviously a lot of research out there saying that alcohol can be good for you, it can be bad for you, and both things can be true at the same time. As always, as a nutritionist, I'm always saying everything in moderation, of course. And take antibiotics only when necessary. We know antibiotics, obviously, they're life-saving sometimes, but unfortunately, they are given out quite freely. And I only just took my son to the doctors the other day for a blocked tear duct, which is now healed, and they gave me antibiotics straight away for him. And I think that's quite common, but it's sad because he's only one. So actually, for him to be having antibiotics right now, it wouldn't be a good thing unless he really, really needed to, which I didn't believe he did. So I didn't give them to him, and his eyes cleared up. But it's antibiotic resistance as well is a problem. So yeah, it's just unfortunate that we do need to take them sometimes, but if you do, then really make sure you take some multi-strain probiotics after you've done your round of antibiotics. Make sure it's afterwards. And then eating without distractions. So this is more of a lifestyle hack, I suppose, rather than a nutrition one necessarily, but it is really important. I mean, so many people come to me with bloating issues, and people want a complicated, they think it's a complicated solution, but sometimes it simply is just taking out the screens, sitting away from work and eating mindfully, taking 4 deep breaths before you start eating, taking 4 seconds to breathe in, and then 6 seconds to breathe out is a great pattern. If you do 4 of those, it's going to take your body from this fight or flight state to rest and digest. And the problem is that a lot of us are so busy that we're always in fight or flight, and our body never actually goes into that parasympathetic mode where it's actually able to digest the food properly. Because when we take a moment, our brain then tells our stomach we're about to eat, and then it starts producing all the the gastric juices and all the enzymes it needs to break down food, and it's ready to receive that food. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then we can get bloated because the stomach's receiving food when it's simply not ready to, or the brain hasn't had a chance to tell the stomach that's what's happening. So something simple you can do and that has a big impact. And try not to drink water as well when you eat, because this can dilute your enzymes and digestive juices. So that's something that can really help too, just to make sure you drink after you eat, not before or during. Just move that slightly over there. And just checking how we're doing for time. Okay. So diet, obviously, I did go through these just now, but just to really hammer the point home that we really need to eat a diverse range of foods. This is number one critical. The goal is 30 different plants a week. And I know that sounds a lot, but Don't worry, it includes all fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, pulses, herbs and spices, fresh or dried. So that makes it a little bit more achievable, I think, when you realize that it encompasses all of those things. So if you can try and aim for 1 or 2 different plants, maybe next time you go to a supermarket, and each time you go to add in a different, something you haven't tried before, your gut will really thank you for it. And then fiber-rich foods. We need to, well, in the UK, the goal is 30 grams a day. That's the recommendation. But on average, people have half of that, maybe about 18 grams a day. So not enough. And that is causing problems for people's health. I mean, if we could fix that, I think we would reduce a lot of chronic disease that we're dealing with. So yeah, and that includes insoluble and soluble fiber. So yeah, insoluble fiber is more important if you're dealing with bloating and things. You might want to lower your insoluble fiber and increase soluble fiber a bit more. So insoluble, I'm trying to think of the sources now, and they've escaped my brain. I'll come back to you on that one because I'm trying to think of the different sources of insoluble and soluble. And then, like I said, fermented foods, basically the cherry on top. So live yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh. I knew I missed one, tempeh, and kefir. So yeah, think about eating the rainbow, and think about what you can add in, not what you can take out. That's usually my advice to nutritionists. People think about the foods they need to take out, not about what they add in. So probiotics, do we really need them? This is a question a lot of people ask me, and choosing a probiotic can feel a bit overwhelming because there's so many options available on the market. But first of all, we need to identify your health needs because there's so many different strains of probiotics, and it's a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall. If you take a multi-strain probiotic for something like bloating or some kind of issue you're dealing with, gastrointestinal issue, because you might have plenty of those bacteria and you might be lacking one particular strain, which often happens when I get a client to do a stool test. We can see exactly which strain of bacteria that they're lacking, and we can be really precise and prescribe certain strains of probiotics. But if you are looking for a probiotic, and I'm not saying that they're going to do any harm, probably it's not going to do you any harm necessarily, unless you have something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO for short. You just need to be a bit careful about that, because that's where we're having too much bacteria thriving in the small intestine, which shouldn't be, and that can cause things like bloating and food sensitivities and lots of issues. So yeah, unless you've got something like that, if you want to take a probiotic, the checklist that you should look for is looking for the strains. So the effectiveness of a probiotic is really dependent on the strains it contains. So well-researched strains include lactobacillus or bifidobacterium, and I have the particular strains within those as well. For example, for diarrhea, we know one called lactobacillus rhamnosus is particularly good for that one. And make sure that you can see the strains on the label, because that makes it's a bit more of a trustworthy product if you can see the strains. And then check the CFU count. So the CFUs count for colony forming units, and it indicates the amount of live microbes in the product. So the actual amount you're getting, you really want to be looking for it in the billions, but a higher CFU count doesn't always mean a better product. But yeah, there should be enough in there so that you know there's going to be enough live microbes to actually reach your gut. Because a lot of the problem, if they're not in the billions, then it's likely that they might die off in the stomach or before they reach the large intestine. And then supplement quality obviously varies a lot between brands. So look for brands that have a good reputation in general, and probably like third-party testing or certification if possible. And then if they have prebiotics, that's even better, because this means basically the prebiotics are the fibers that are going to feed the good bacteria in your gut, and that's going to make sure that they survive, basically. And it's going to help the bacteria thrive, basically. So this is called a synbiotic, synbiotic. So that's where they contain both the probiotics and the prebiotics. And then just coming up to the last few slides. So lifestyle, what can we do? Stress management, not always one that we can have much control over, but chronic stress, unfortunately, it does negatively affect your gut microbiome. That's a fact. So if there's anything you can add into your routine, even something small, like taking 5 or 10 minutes to do some deep breathing exercises or meditation or whatever works for you best, that's going to take your body into that parasympathetic state, which is so important, as I said before, because if our body is constantly in that sympathetic fight or flight mode, then our gut isn't having that chance to rest, or for our brain to properly communicate to our gut. And sleep, again, is something that we don't always have control over. I know I haven't over this last year, but 7 to 9 hours a night and trying to be consistent with a sleep schedule is, of course, really important. We know that the more sleep you have, the better your microbiome is as well. And then exercise. Those who exercise also have a better gut composition than those who don't. Helps to diversify your gut bacteria. So just some small things that you can do. Well, I say small things, big things, but not always easy to add into our busy lives, but they have a real compounding effect if you can add them in as a habit. And then lastly, it's my last slide, is that what can harm our guts? Well, quite a lot of things, really. So ultra processed foods being up there really as number one. So generally ultra processed foods are high in sugar and unhealthy fats, and that helps promote the growth of bad bacteria and yeast even into the gut, and then you get that gut dysbiosis going on. And of course, if you've got your diet full of ultra processed foods, that's going to not leave much room for plant-based foods high in fiber and polyphenols, antioxidants, the stuff that's really going to help your gut thrive. And then or high fat, high sugar foods, same really as ultra processed foods. And under ultra processed foods, these are often made with a lot of emulsifiers as well as artificial sugars. And emulsifiers, we know, harm that gut lining too. So I would avoid those if you do have that issue with the gut lining. And then a diet low in fiber, of course, we know fiber is essential, as I've said quite a few times in this presentation, for a healthy gut that helps to feed those beneficial bacteria. And also, it's a diet low in fiber is probably going to cause you to not go to the toilet every day and be constipated, and that is also not good for us. We want to be having 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. And processed and refined foods. Oh, actually, I've spoken about that. And then antibiotics and medication, or ibuprofen. Actually, let's talk about antibiotics. Well, I've pretty much, I think, covered antibiotics. But actually, I don't think I've spoken about ibuprofen and acid blockers. So antibiotics, or non-steroid or anti-inflammatory drugs for short or for long, these basically they do harm our gut health, unfortunately. A long-term use of them is not good, and should definitely shouldn't be a long-term solution, taking acid blockers. Chronic stress, I've spoken about that. And alcohol, unfortunately, excessive alcohol consumption can damage the gut lining again. And smoking affects the composition generally of our gut bacteria. And lack of exercise, I spoke about before. sleep deprivation as well as a side thing can affect weight gain as well and other health issues. And then overuse of sanitizers and antibacterial products. So this is quite an interesting one. Obviously, during COVID, a lot of people were using more of these antibacs and sanitizers. And potentially that was not a good thing for our gut microbiomes, because it's going to prevent exposure to beneficial microbes as well that are going to help to develop your healthy immune system. And then lastly, environmental toxins or pesticides, heavy metals and chemicals. So unfortunately, we're exposed to quite a lot of environmental toxins, generally pesticides, heavy metals, and they can affect the gut microbiome. So do make sure you, at the very least, wash any produce you have. And ideally, if you soak them in white vinegar or bicarbonate of soda, that's even better to really take off more of the pesticide residue. And thank you so much for listening today. Sorry, it's not got my whole screen there. But yeah, I would really love to answer any questions you have now for the last 10 or so minutes. But first, I would love also to know in the chat, what's one thing you're going to implement now to improve your gut health this week? Oh, I love that. Someone's drawn a line.
Oh,
Let
really?
me.
Okay, with the questions, with the time we have, let's get to some questions. I'm going to start with a couple of questions here in chat first. Can you actually get amino acids? Can you buy them, or is that the good way to get them?
Yeah, so I mean, even things like protein powder contains amino acids. Do you mean we have 8 essential amino acids that the body can't generate on their own? We have to get through our diet. I think something like 30 non-essential. So you can get protein powder with all those essential amino acids in. But if you're eating a good diet, you probably don't need to be taking extra amino acids, probably. Because amino acids are essentially just the building block of protein, if I didn't make that clear.
Okay, so diabetes is reversible if you change your diet?
Type 2 diabetes can definitely be reversible. Yes. So what do I recommend as a diet to reverse diabetes? So I'm not sure if it's type 1 or type 2. So I'm going to assume type 2. Well, first of all, a high fiber diet is going to be key to reduce glucose spikes. And there's so many things you can do. I mean, working on your gut health, absolutely. Like I said, it helps improve your blood sugar response to foods, which is pretty amazing. There's so many things that dietary wise you can do, like looking at the glycemic index of foods. So each food is scaled from 0 to 100 on its blood sugar response, and just in trying to include more foods that have that lower rating, it's going to help your blood sugar response. And trying to eat protein, at least protein, and ideally fat as well, with sugar or carbs, will help to blunt that spike of blood sugar.
And there's a question about how long should you wait to drink water after you eat? Models used to say about 30 minutes.
Do you know, I'm not too sure. I've just said after, but maybe half an hour. Maybe there's someone who's done a bit more research on it. And
That's a habit I've had for a long time, is not drinking with my meals, but drinking like waiting 30 minutes after.
that's good. Because of, what was your reason for it? Just have interest.
This was when I was growing up in Hawaii. My brother had a girlfriend who was a model, and she would say that's what all the models were doing to try and keep their bodies slimmer and healthier.
That's interesting, because a lot of time diet culture has told us to have water before we eat, so that it tells us that we're more full when we do eat. That's interesting.
So you're recommending drink 30 minutes before you eat?
No, sorry, I was saying diet culture has told us that. I don't go along with that thinking, because it dilutes our digestive system. So it's not good basically in terms of for our digestion. But I would say after, me half an hour after, why not?
Okay, so let's go to a question from Malak. Go ahead and activate your microphone, Malak.
Yes,
Thanks,
thanks, doctor, for this Thanks, doctor, for this live information. I would like to ask regarding the keto diet. Is it good for our gut health? As I'm really an advocate for keto diet. Is it good for the gut or not? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It actually isn't, unfortunately, because we are having such a low carbohydrate intake with a ketogenic diet. So because of having such low carbohydrates, perhaps 10% of your calories or 10-20%, I'm not too sure, it's going to starve some of your gut bacteria if you do it long term, because you're not having any fiber really, or much fiber to feed your gut bacteria. And it can be quite restrictive as well, because you're eating just generally, you're cutting out a whole food group. So you're cutting out a lot of potential foods that would help increase the diversity of your gut. So I'm personally not an advocate in terms of gut health. I'm not an advocate for ketogenic diet, even though I know there's other great benefits to it. So not long term anyway. So should I go on to the next question?
Yeah, Dr. Jane, go ahead.
Good afternoon, all.
Hello.
Thank you for taking us on a health gut.
On stage.
My question goes this way. Here in Nigeria, you know, we are still third world country. Even in health, in academics, IT, Western world go first before we. So there are certain things they do before it will come to us. It takes 10 years of research findings. Now, in some hospitals here in Nigeria, the doctors do tell me that immunance, when your immune system is high, if you have some diseases like malaria, headache, having high immune system, you can go on without taking any drugs in respect to these diseases. So I want to confirm whether it is true or not.
So infectious diseases, I think, as you're referring to, I mean, that's slightly different. That is different because the gut helps us more in terms of those chronic health, lifestyle mediated diseases like some cancers, diabetes, heart conditions, but more acute or infectious diseases, malaria, that's not something. You need the medication for that, absolutely. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, but yeah, a good gut health will set you up for quicker recovery, obviously a much more enhanced immune system and rate of healing. So the gut will have some impact in some way, but it's not going to be the be all and end all, the cure all for everything. And I hope that didn't come across that, you know, the gut is the answer to, even though all disease begins in the gut, that's more talking about chronic long-term diseases. I hope that clarifies it.
All right, now we go to Ismael Adebola. Hello, how are you today?
I'm fine, sir. I'm fine.
to see you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good morning, sir. Good morning, doctor. Yeah, my question is this. What are the differences between probiotics and prebiotics? And how do they contribute to gut health?
Sure, thank you for your question. So probiotics are the good bacteria. So they are bacteria. That's when you have a probiotic, you're ingesting the bacteria themselves. Prebiotics, they help to feed the bacteria, the probiotics, keep them alive. Because if the bacteria aren't eating something, they're going to be eating you. And that's when you can get the leaky gut issue. The gut lining starts to separate. So yeah, prebiotics and probiotics, ideally you have them together to help your gut health. Does that make sense? So probiotics are in fermented foods and in supplements, and prebiotics are fiber. They're from fruit and vegetables, and you can take it as a supplement to help the bacteria thrive and grow.
Okay, I see an interesting question here in chat. In many countries, people disinfect their foods before they eat them, like the apples and the fruits and the vegetables. What, and that's the kind of, there's like pesticides and other things on the fruit, but are they missing things? Are they killing things that should be healthy?
I wonder how they're doing it. I mean,
Sometimes they'll take like even bleach. They'll put the food into bleach and disinfect it, and then clean it real well on the outside. Or they'll
wow.
take sanitizing solutions and things like that to clean it, or they'll just do soap and water. But there's something that'll just clean off the oils and everything from the outside of the fruit and vegetables.
Yes. If it's got a skin on, they wouldn't be doing it if it had the skin on, I don't think.
Right.
I don't think that's, personally, I don't see any benefit of using something as strong as bleach.
Right.
That seems kind of extreme to me, that bicarbonate of soda or vinegar will do a good job without harming you with chemicals.
And I have a question. Heavy metals, like people who have those saucepans with the anti-stick surface, and sometimes that breaks apart and the heavy metals come through. Can that produce leaky gut?
Yes, I certainly, it's gonna, the PFAs, the forever chemicals they are on the Teflon. Yes, that is not good for your gut lining. That's going to be increasing bad bacteria. Yes, gut dysbiosis and leaky gut. Yes to both.
And maybe the next subject is maybe something you might want to spend a whole class on, but maybe acne.
Yes.
How does gut health affect acne?
Yes, good question. So there is a big link between, again, leaky gut and acne. And when we work on people's leaky gut, their acne generally improves because you haven't got those particles, food particles or toxins escaping where they shouldn't be in the bloodstream, and they have to go somewhere. And obviously we know our skin is our biggest detox organ. So that's often why we get acne, cystic acne, is because of the toxins. Or
So you're saying first go to those soluble, insoluble fibers to heal up that leaky gut.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
And if you drink during your eating, does that affect leaky gut?
I mean, it's not going to help gut health in general, but leaky gut, I mean, probably not directly to that. No. A very healing food for your gut is bone broth. So you can buy this or make it even better if you make it. This is very healing for a gut because it's so rich in collagen and it helps to bind the junctions back together again.
Okay, let's go to Kelechi. Kelechi, you can act it. There you go.
Good morning, Dr. Lambert and Ms. Rebecca. You made mention of things that can harm our guts. My question is, what is really the cause of leaky gut syndrome? Explain it more. And how is it medically diagnosed? Or is it really medically diagnosed?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'm going to start with your second question there. It's not really medically diagnosed because it's not typically recognized by medicine, by the doctors just yet. It is slowly being recognized, but there's maybe in a few years we'll be a bit further ahead with that. So a lot of doctors won't really know much about it, and they'll think it's something maybe a bit like made up, I'm going to say, but it certainly is a real thing. It's just modern medicine hasn't quite caught up with it yet. So there's the diagnosis of it is through a inflammatory marker called was a protein called zonulin, and if that's raised, we know that there is some gut impermeability going on. So you can take that test privately, or you can do a stool test to find out basically to find the answer to. But if you're having food sensitivities, you probably have lots of gastrointestinal issues. There's probably some level of gut impermeability going on.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
the first question, sorry, did I miss anything on there?
No, did you? I don't know.
Both questions, I hope so.
All right, so now we go to Rubama. Yahaya. Go ahead. Oh, you had your microphone activated there for a second. There you go.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and wonderful presentation too. I really enjoyed it. But my question has to do with